All right, good.
We could be legends after all. We could be legends after all.
All right, how's everyone doing? So gotta apologize. I'm Matt.
I'm Jimmy.
We're two average guys. So we're about 17 minutes behind. We thought we were live.
We thought we were live, so we just did like a 20-minute show without you guys.
Yeah, so
Where are you at?
we actually did like the best show probably ever, and you guys missed
Yep.
it for about 17 minutes. But we're back. We're gonna make it quick. Apologize for the technical difficulties. This is what happens when you do a show in a basement and you never know what's gonna happen. So sounds kind of weird,
true.
but sounds kind of weird. Anyways, we're gonna kind of make this quick and dirty since we already talked for.
I guess we can clean up some of the bad stuff that was going on.
Yeah, so we talked for 17 minutes. But anyways, we have a lot of things that went on this last week in college football. There was some excitement for some teams, some really close games that some people weren't really excited about.
Right.
And that actually affected some of the potential playoff atmosphere and also had an effect on where some teams are ranked this week. So, by the way, that was Sleeping with Sirens, Legends, just so it lets us actually post the video. At least I mentioned it so we don't get booted from the video.
Oh, is that what you have to do?
I don't know. We'll see. I'm not sponsored by them, but to get them to approve it takes a lot. Yeah, jump through hoops to get a song that's not yours. Anyways, I can't sing. Sorry, guys.
That's dumb.
All right, so let's talk through the top 10. So we got Alabama, we got Penn State, Georgia, TCU, Wisconsin, Ohio State. Not a whole lot has changed in the top 10. Clemson's at 7, Miami's at 8, number 9 Notre Dame. So Notre Dame was ranked 13th.
Mm-hmm.
They beat number 11 USC. They jump into the top 10 at number 9. They jump Oklahoma and Oklahoma State, who both drop a spot. Which you can take a look at those two. Take a look at those two games. Oklahoma 42-35 to K-State. K-State was what 3-3 going in that game. So now they're 4-3, or now 3-4. So really, a team that Oklahoma, you would maybe, if you think of them as a playoff team, probably should have smoked K-State or at least won by more than a touchdown in the last minute of the game. Then Oklahoma State barely beat Texas 13-10. Now Texas has had some good weeks, but they beat them in overtime.
And the interception to end the game was, I mean, they had a play to tie it. I mean, you stole that ball away.
Yeah, you got to throw it away, and really that's a freshman mistake.
Yeah, that's what they were saying.
And really what I saw was the receiver was at the goal line going towards the pylon, and he was covered, and he saw he was covered, and I think he wanted him to go to the back of the end zone.
He was going to try to throw it over.
So he tried to throw it over, and it was a bad throw.
And the guy just kind of stopped.
Yeah, and the guy ran out of bounds. So, but really, you look at that game, you look at Oklahoma. That's why Notre Dame jumped in the top 10 is because those two games were so close. If Oklahoma and Oklahoma State had played well in their games and won without much contest, I think that Notre Dame might be sitting at number 11. Probably sitting at number 11 instead of jumping in the top 10. But it's not.
And they had a big win too, so I mean that makes a difference. But it's much easier to have them jump when the other teams struggle a little bit with non-ranked teams.
So Alabama had no problem with Tennessee this week, which no one really expected them to. Penn State, that was a big game. So a lot of people have had questions.
We talked about it for a while.
We did. So but a lot of people have had questions about Penn State. Who have they played? Why are they in the top 5? Do they deserve to be at number 2? And they won 42-13. And they not only beat Michigan, but they just walked all over them. Michigan's defense was nowhere to be found. I mean, they picked them apart. Between McSorley and Barkley, yeah, the defense played well on some plays, but Barkley ran for over 100 yards. McSorley had 76 yards rushing. I mean, as a tandem, those two really controlled that game and took Penn State to the victory. And Michigan's out of the top 25 now. And
that's right.
They were at 19.
They're still in there on the coaches, but
yeah, they were in the top 10 to begin the season. They've got a couple losses now, and now they're outside the top 25 in the AP. Coaches poll doesn't matter. The coaches poll had, I think they had Notre Dame still outside the top 10.
I think they're at 10.
Yeah, so I think you look at Michigan as a whole, and last year they were all about defense. This year they are all about defense. But when you're all about defense, what do you miss out on? Offense.
Right.
O'Korn is not a great quarterback, and he's not terrible, but he's not a really good quarterback. They rely too much on their defense, and when you're playing Penn State, who has two dynamic players on offense with McSorley and Barkley, you're gonna have a tough time keeping up with that. And they have a good offensive line, so they protected McSorley really well in that game.
Yeah, I mean, Penn State does have, they've got Ohio State this week. Then they've got Michigan State and Nebraska. They'll have a couple tough weeks here, but they're the real deal.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Empty, man. Georgia had a bye week, so they didn't have to worry about moving anywhere. They got some games coming up. They got Florida this week. I don't think it's going to be much of a game. I think Georgia's going to have no problem with Florida.
Yeah.
Auburn, though, they got Auburn and Georgia Tech on their schedule. So look out for those two games. I think those are going to be deciding factors for Georgia.
I always forget that they've got Georgia Tech in that rivalry weekend.
Yeah, the rivalry weekend. So that should be fun. So they're sitting at number 3. TCU, 43-0 over Kansas. I mean, we had a good laugh about this earlier as well. But, I mean, Kansas, probably just give up on football for a while.
When you only get 3 yards in the first half and 21 in the game, you should probably just quit.
Yeah, I mean, you got to figure something out. I mean, is it worth having a football team when you suck so bad? So stick to basketball.
Change sports, get like a men's lacrosse or something.
Yeah, but TCU's got Iowa State, they got Texas, they got Oklahoma. So their next 3 weeks are going to be pretty tough with their schedule. But once again, they're top dog right now in the Big 12, and really, in my mind, the only hope to get a Big 12 team into the playoffs.
They do. They have 3 pretty tough weeks, don't they? Mm-hmm. Iowa State, Texas, and Oklahoma.
But that's really the only team in the Big 12 that has a chance. In my mind, I think Oklahoma losing to Iowa State. Yes, Iowa State jumped in the top 25, but when you lost them, they were unranked.
If Oklahoma State were to run the table, they'd play TCU in the Big 12 championship.
Yeah.
The winner of that. If TCU had run the table, the winner of that would probably be in.
And if Oklahoma State beats Oklahoma. So there's still a lot of deciding things in the Big 12, but right now TCU's big dog. You got Oklahoma at 10, Oklahoma State at 11. So you got number 5, Wisconsin. They beat Maryland 38-13, so not really much of a contest there.
Right.
Kind of a slow, boring game. They took out a big lead early and then not much scoring in the second half.
Kind of what they do.
Yep. But they got Indiana, Iowa, Michigan remain on their schedule. Although Michigan's a pretender, I still think you got to watch out for them to try to spoil some people. With Wisconsin being a pretty heavy rushing team.
And
good defense, but heavy rush game. It could be low scoring.
And Michigan lost to Michigan State and Penn State. They've still got Ohio State and Wisconsin. So, I mean, they don't want to lose four games.
Harbaugh doesn't want to lose 4 games. So. I would love it if Harbaugh did. But
me too.
Then you got Ohio State. They had a bye, but they got Penn State coming up this weekend.
They had good time for a bye, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I want Penn State to win this.
Yeah, Penn State. They got Iowa, Michigan State, Illinois, and Michigan remain on their schedule. So they still got some tough games to go. I still got a lot of questions about them on who they really are, who Barrett is. If Barrett wants to be that leader, we'll find out this next week if he can do it at home against number 2 Penn State. So, Clemson number 7 had a bye, but they got Georgia Tech, they got NC State, they got Florida State, and they got South Carolina still on their schedule.
Yeah, I'm kind of confused as to why I would have thought Miami should have been ahead of them because Miami is still undefeated and they beat Syracuse and Clemson lost to them. But
and Miami at number 8 barely beat Syracuse.
I know they barely beat them, but
not really that great of a game. But they got Virginia Tech and Notre Dame on their schedule still, and Virginia. So Miami still has a tough schedule ahead, and that's what's kind of nice and fun about the next 4 or 5 weeks with college football is these teams that are ranked in the top 10, they got a tough schedule ahead of them.
Yep.
So they don't have any. They maybe have one cupcake on their schedule, if you will, but really they're all going to have a tough schedule ahead. Notre Dame at number 9. At one point, was thinking maybe they had the toughest schedule on the board, but looking at the other teams, I mean the remaining schedule, I think it's going to be pretty tough. So Notre Dame still has.
So they got NC State this week,
and then they got Wake Forest. Wake Forest should be pretty easy. But then they got Miami.
Navy and Stanford.
Navy and Stanford. So Stanford is ranked at number 20, I believe, right now in the top 25.
Miami's ranked 8.
And NC State is ranked. So they got three of their remaining games are ranked teams as of now.
Right.
But it could be fun. Notre Dame's got a tough schedule ahead, and they took out number 11 USC, and really had no problem doing so. 49-14. I really don't think anyone saw that coming. Maybe Notre Dame fans did, because Notre Dame fans always think their team is the hottest shit in town. But really, they proved it last night.
And I mean, a great win for sure. I think that USC has been overrated the entire season, absolutely. Yep. And the one thing that I haven't thought that Darnold has been that great. And I didn't really know how great USC's defense was, and obviously it's not that good.
Yeah.
And Wimbush and Adams, I mean, that just like McSorley and Barkley, when you have both of them that can do it, stick to it, and it works.
Yeah.
And both of those teams are showing that.
That's what they're doing. And the big thing with the game last night between USC and Notre Dame was you got to see how poor USC's rush game is and how much they rely on Darnold. I mean, he was 20 of 28 for 280 yards.
He had a decent game.
The rush offense, their top rusher at 31 yards.
Right.
So you look at that and it's like, okay, so how good is this USC team? Not to take anything away from Notre Dame, because Notre Dame put up 49 points on them. Yeah. And that's the most points I think USC's given up all year, but Notre Dame just went in there and just said, hey, you guys kind of suck. We're just going to take over this game. Yep. And they won at home.
And they didn't even need to throw. I mean, he was 9 of 19.
Yeah.
I mean, under 50%, but he didn't need to throw.
Yeah, they both rushed.
Yards.
They both rushed for over 100 yards, so both him and Adams. So I think you have the Notre Dame team that is building a lot of confidence going into their remaining 5 games. Go. Going into the remaining games, they're building a lot of confidence, and especially seeing, hey, we got 3 of our 5 remaining games are ranked opponents. We have a shot now in the top 10. They were unranked at the beginning of the season.
Right.
But being number 9 right now, going into the remaining 5 games, they really control what they can do to end the season. Now they're going to need some help. They're going to need help from the Big 12.
With some of these other conferences, their fate is in their hands. Win your games. When you go to your conference championship, win.
Now,
as far as Notre Dame goes,
one thing right now for Notre Dame was good though is the Pac-12 is done.
Yeah, they're pretty. Like I said earlier, Washington maybe, but
it's a long shot.
They also lost
to an unranked team.
I think they are, because then what? They're going to play probably at least a 2-loss team in the conference championship. If they're not a 2,
yeah,
the Pac-12 champ could be 2 losses or more.
Yeah, and it's not something where they're going to put a 2-loss Pac-12 team in the playoff.
No.
Even I think right now with the 1-loss Pac-12 team, I don't think they're going to be in, because all of them
because then your conference championship game would be to a 2 or 3 loss opponent.
Yeah, it's just not going to happen. So
Agreed.
Pac-12 is out, which is good for Notre Dame. They need another conference to get knocked out, and right now their best shot. Well, it's going to be the SEC. I don't think is going to be out. SEC is going to be in. ACC is not in there.
No, not by any means.
I mean, Clemson's the only shot.
And then Miami's undefeated. NC State's 1 loss, undefeated in conference. They do play Notre Dame this weekend.
Yeah, it's good. Those 3 teams have a shot, but it's going to be tough for all these teams. It's going to be tough for the Big Ten and the Big 12. I mean, all these these other 4 conferences.
If Notre Dame loses one of these games, I mean, that you got to assume they're out without having a conference championship that they could win if they lose one of their games.
A two-loss Notre Dame,
and then all these other conferences start having a couple losses. I mean, is there going to be 2 conference? Is it going to be the first year that we actually have 2 teams from the same conference make it?
Yeah. Well,
and Georgia.
And so as far as rankings go, as far as they have like toughest schedules upcoming. Notre Dame was at one point number 4 or 5 in the country. They're still up there, but you look at the other top 10 teams, the other top 8, top 9, top 10 teams, whatever. Whether the teams that they're playing are ranked or not, those schedules are tough.
Right.
Some of those games are on the road, some are at home, but when you got, I mean, even Alabama, they got LSU. LSU's been playing a lot better lately.
Yeah.
And then they got Auburn. So they got really two tough games, but the SEC Championship is probably going to be against Georgia. But even Georgia, you got Georgia Tech, you got Florida, you got Auburn, so you don't have an easy schedule. So
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh, they do play Auburn.
So, and then, TCU with Oklahoma coming up, they got Iowa State, they got Texas,
Iowa State's not an easy out. I mean, they lost in double overtime to Iowa.
Yep.
First week or second week. They were winning in that game. Could have easily handled that. That means they would only have one loss right now, and it would have been a 10-point loss on a Thursday night to Texas. It's not bad. It's not a bad season so far.
You look at the top 11 teams, with Oklahoma State round out the top 11, and really it's anybody's game right now in the top 11 teams. I mean, they all have a legitimate shot to make the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
But for a team like Notre Dame, the one thing that it could hurt them, depending on what else happens in the other conferences, is not having a conference.
Right.
And yes, they play some good opponents. Yes, you play some tough games, and you might win all those games. You might only have one loss to a Georgia. But if Penn State, Georgia, and TCU, if they're not going to be losing their games, Notre Dame, you might finish 5.
Yeah, the worst thing that could happen
would
be for Alabama or let's say Georgia beats Alabama in the SEC championship. Both those teams are going to go to the playoff.
Yeah.
And then you'd have, if Penn State and TCU were to run the table at that point, all those teams would be ahead of you.
Yeah, and so, but once again, they still control their own fate, and they're going to need help from other people, though. They look great. They're having one of the best years they've had in a while. Probably the best year since they got their ass kicked by Alabama in the national championship. But they're having a good year. And I don't think anybody who doesn't like Notre Dame, we don't like Notre Dame.
Right.
But I want to give credit where credit is due, because that's exactly what's happening. I talked a lot of shit early in the season on them. They beat Michigan State. I'm like, that's not a quality win yet, but Michigan State's number 16, and they barely won yesterday, by the way. But there's a lot of hope for Notre Dame, not only this year, but you got to look forward in the next few years coming with having a guy like Wimbush as your quarterback. They have a lot of hope for Notre Dame. Now, things can turn just like that.
Just like last year for them. They went 4-8.
Yeah. So, but Notre Dame this year, they are the real deal right now, and teams got to look at them very seriously, and having their toughest, one of their toughest games, like Miami, has to look at them as one of their upcoming opponents as one of their toughest games.
Yeah, I was watching Miami a little bit early on yesterday, and they looked pretty good. And I was thinking, oh man, I don't know that that anyone is going to beat them. But then again, they had another close game, so.
Yeah, and
just
really,
never know.
And NC State going to Notre Dame this next weekend. Going to Notre Dame. I think that's key, is the game's at Notre Dame. But NC
State's defense is going to be a lot better than USC's was.
NC State has a tough defense, and they're better than USC. So that game for Notre Dame is a staple game on their schedule. I think if they can get past NC State, it's going to be it's still going to be a tough road, but it's going to be easier, and it's going to give them a little breathing room if they can beat NC State. But NC State's not going to be a tough out, so that's actually going to be a really good game this next weekend. A lot of the really good games are at 2:30, which kind of sucks, but
it does, but it doesn't. It sucks because they're all at the same time. But Raspberry's 6:30, so you can watch them.
Number 11, Oklahoma State goes to number 22, West Virginia. Once again, Big 12 matchup that could really make a big difference in what's
and
Oklahoma State.
I do feel like Oklahoma State doesn't play as well on the road.
They don't. And it's funny, Oklahoma State, as one of the best offenses as far as yards per game in the country, they've struggled in some of these games where they probably shouldn't. And it's not usually Mason Rudolph who struggles, but only against Texas, 13 points. That there's something not clicking on offense.
Well, they got a lot of yards, they just weren't scoring.
Mm-hmm.
So,
but West Virginia, look out that game, number 22. That could be a big game in the Big 12 this weekend. Number 4, TCU plays in Ames. Number 25, Iowa State.
It's a tough place to go play.
This should have been game day.
And right. Well, and now that Iowa State's ranked, that place is going to be rocking.
Yeah. Well, and that's big for TCU, playing another ranked opponent on their schedule. Yeah, they're number 25, but Iowa State, the way they've been playing, and Iowa State beat Oklahoma. So Number 4 TCU and number 25 Iowa State. That should be a pretty fun game to watch. Once again, I think game day should have been there, but it's not. Or it should have been at Notre Dame. NC State at Notre Dame probably could have been game day as well, but it's ESPN. They don't always pick the best games. Then we got Georgia Tech at number 7 Clemson. So Georgia Tech at Clemson, that game, that's going to be one to watch out for too. So Clemson, a lot of questions I think surrounding Clemson after the loss to Syracuse. They had a bye week after the loss, so we haven't seen how they're going to bounce back after a loss. But Georgia Tech has played a lot of opponents very tough, and that triple option is something that Clemson struggles with every year they play Georgia Tech.
And Georgia Tech, they have a couple losses, but they've been close. So I mean, they don't really get blown out.
They really don't. So that game, we'll pick our games here in a second.
I'm guessing that
it's gonna be a tough game.
I'm guessing that Bryant's going to be back for Clemson. I don't know, but
after having a week
they had a bye week. I think he's going to be back. So
depending on what protocol is for their concussions. Then we got Nebraska, Purdue. We're going on the road at Purdue. Purdue lost this weekend.
They lost to Rutgers. I was pretty surprised.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just depends on which team of ours shows up. And
I'm picking Nebraska. I always do.
I don't mean that. I just mean I don't know how this game.
Don't know what kind of game we're going to get.
Yeah, because
Purdue's had some really good games this year.
We lost Purdue 2 years ago out there, which was brutal. Tommy didn't play. Where Fife played, but I saw that. But we struggled with them at home last year.
Yeah,
and their quarterback's decent, so we better come to play.
Yep. And then we got number 2 Penn State going to Ohio State. Ohio State ranked number 6, Penn State number 2. This is the second time that Ohio State's going to get game day, and the second week in a row that Penn State's getting game day. So
that's weird. I don't know what.
We got other good games on the schedule. Even Oklahoma State, West Virginia would have been worthy of it, but
they probably should have made Notre Dame USC game day last week.
Yeah, yesterday.
For this
no
week.
kidding. Why wouldn't they have done that?
Why wouldn't they have done that? And then, unless they really thought Penn State was going to lose to Michigan, and so then they couldn't do it for the next week.
Yeah, really, I don't know, really weird. But guess what? Kirk Herbstreit, you get your wish. You get to go back up in the booth and call another Ohio State game against Penn State and drool over JT Barrett like you enjoy. I see Penn State winning that game. I think they're better offensively. They're better defensively. Ohio State, there's still questions around Ohio State. Yes, you lost to Oklahoma, but you put up some good points in some other games. But this is really getting down to where you're going to be playing the top opponents that you're going to see all year. And Penn State, I think Barkley can run all over that team, and I think McSorley can not only run but throw all over that defense, because Ohio State's defense, I don't think is that strong still. I think their corners are their weakness.
Right.
And McSorley can expose that. And when you have a dynamic running back in Barkley coming out of the backfield to catch passes, I think they're going to be in trouble because their offensive line is good too. Yeah. And the defensive line of Ohio State is pretty mediocre. They can stop the run, but they don't get a lot of sacks.
No, I think Penn State's going to win for sure. But I think it could be a pretty good game.
I think it could be a fun game to watch. And as much as I hate Ohio State, I think they're going to give Penn State all they can. Because guess what? Urban Meyer likes to prepare his teams to go to a playoff.
And they had a bye week.
They were able to sit down on the couch, sit down at the football stadium, and probably watch in their locker room, whatever they want to do, film room, and watch that game and break down the plays as they happened. Well, also you got Penn State, who probably has more plays up their sleeve that they're not showing some of these teams to prepare for Ohio State, or they're going to have more plays. I think that game's going to be really intriguing, but I think Oklahoma State's going to beat West Virginia.
Agreed.
I think TCU and Iowa State.
I think it's going to go pretty. I think it might be pretty tight. But
here's the one thing I see out of TCU is they're still a more high-powered offense.
So they could be scoring pretty quick, but Iowa State can score fast.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they did against Oklahoma. The one time I watched them against Iowa too, but the couple times I've watched them, I mean, they can move the ball. So
I think TCU wins, but I think that game's going to be close in Ames. They're going to have their fans behind them. That stadium's going to be
If
rocking.
Iowa State can get an early lead in that one, it might come down pretty close to the wire. Otherwise, if TCU gets out in front, Iowa State will keep it tight.
Yeah, I think I still pick TCU, but I think it's going to be a close game. Notre Dame playing at home against NC State.
I don't know.
I don't even know how to pick that game. Like I said, I think Notre Dame's good. They've had a good season. They've had a really good year. They just whooped up on a USC who, once again, we both think they were overrated at the beginning of the year, but
Notre Dame scores fast. They score long touchdowns.
You talk about preseason rankings, and we've talked about it every year for the last 4 years. The preseason rankings are really, it doesn't tell you who a team is because they haven't played a game yet. So they rank them before they've even played. And some of those teams can lose players on offense or defense that can make a difference in how the team is projected the rest of the year. But they don't take that into account. They take into their recruiting class who they have coming in to play that next year.
Or guys that,
So
doesn't matter.
you look at Notre Dame, who's now number 9. They were unranked at the beginning of the year. USC was ranked in the top 10. I think they were ranked number 8 at the beginning of the year. Maybe even a little bit higher. They might have been 5. But they were in the top 10 at the beginning of the season, and now they got 2 losses, and they're at 21. And they got a tough schedule ahead still.
Are you talking USC?
Yeah.
Oh, they were like 4 or 5 to start.
Yeah, that's what I said. They were probably 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So Notre Dame has proved that, hey, preseason rankings don't mean shit. You control your own team and your own destiny, but that's why I don't think preseason rankings should really come out till after week 7, after week 8, when those playoff rankings come out. That's when you should rank teams.
And so, after next week, the playoff rankings will be out on the
Halloween,
following
Tuesday the 31st. Yep.
So that'll be interesting to see kind of what the committee's gauging as opposed to the AP poll. Maybe there's maybe in Notre Dame, instead of sitting at 9, maybe they're at 6.
Yeah.
But maybe they're at.
It's gonna depend on how they do against
well,
State.
that's true, but what do they take into account? Are they taking a Clemson loss to an unranked team? Bigger, or Oklahoma State loss?
Oklahoma loss. Yeah. So I think that game, NC State going to Notre Dame, I'm thinking it's going to be a 6-point spread. I mean, I don't know how you could make it. At 3-point spread, I don't think it'll be that, but I think they might put 6 points on Notre Dame in that game.
Because they normally give you 3 for home field advantage. Be something like that.
It's going to be a tough one.
I was curious to see what the Nebraska-Purdue spread was, but it wasn't out yet.
I'm gonna take Georgia Tech over Clemson.
Okay.
They're going to Clemson. It's going to be a tough environment, but I think that triple option gives them trouble every year, and Clemson is not the same team they were last year.
Right.
I think they're going to lose to Georgia Tech at home. They're going to knock them outside the top 10, probably outside the top 15, because that'll be their second loss on the year. Both of them being unranked teams. Who do you got in that game?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that. I think Bryant comes back. They had a bye week. I think Clemson ends up winning.
Okay.
But I'll be cheering for Georgia Tech, that's for sure.
Okay. And then Penn State, Ohio State. We both picked Penn State already. It's going to be a good game. And it should be fun to watch. I mean, there's still good games. I don't think there's the amount of good games there was this past weekend. There was a lot of good games that were not ranked opponents playing ranked opponents.
Right, and I mean, some of them we didn't even talk about. Like, the Michigan State-Indiana game was great.
Yeah, it was a really good game to watch, and Indiana had every opportunity to win that
actually,
game.
Michigan State really screwed up down the end. I don't know if you saw the end, but Indiana, their coaches just told them to stand there and let the guy run in for a touchdown.
And the guy's like juking left and right,
and he ran for the touchdown. All he had to do was get a first down, take a knee, or go down, and they would have been able to take a knee 3 times, but instead it gave Indiana a chance. Now
they were down by 8, so they still had to get the 2 point if they
would
scored.
have, but they still had a chance as opposed to not having a chance at all.
That game was entertaining, and I thought the same thing because I'm watching the
What's he doing?
And I'm like, Michigan State. Like I saw the guy like kind of just backpedal. I'm like, you're not. The ball's over there, and then I'm like,
no, I know. he was running it, and I go, man, those guys are standing around there, and then I go, oh, they're letting them score.
Yeah, because there's still a minute 30 left, I think, in the game. Almost a minute and a half
it was
left.
Between a minute and a minute and a half.
So they had time to go down and score, but so that game was pretty entertaining. Indiana, once again, a good opponent in the Big Ten, and anytime you can beat Indiana this year, I think they have a strong enough offense. Their defense is kind of weary.
I'm kind of glad that we didn't play them this year because they're pretty tough.
I think they would have thrown all over us.
Yeah.
Cobbs would have been scoring 80-yard touchdowns every time I got the ball. But really, a lot of good things coming up over the next few weeks. Got the playoff rankings on the 31st. We got a lot of good games coming up. Nebraska, see what they can do the remaining schedule. Always cheer on a Big Red.
Yeah, we got Purdue, we got Northwestern, Minnesota, Penn State, and Iowa.
Tough schedule.
Hopefully
but
we can win 3 or 4 of those games.
Yeah. So, that's all we got today. Once again, I'm Matt.
Yeah, I'm Jimmy.
We're two average guys, and that was our opinion today. Hope you guys enjoy.
See you
Share,
next
like
week.
with your friends. Once again, we'll finish up with some the remaining of that song for Sleeping with the Sirens called Legends. So hopefully you guys enjoy it. Look it up. Great artist, great song. Have a good rest of the weekend. Enjoy your NFL day. Go Cowboys.
See you next week.
Nothing's ever what it seems.